everyone? It is Julian Moffit once again, back with another episode of NOBULL. Thank you all for tuning in. This week was probably the craziest week of Donald Trump's presidency, and I don't put that lightly. It was actually laughable at times, but it was scary because this man is our president. We're going to talk about some things that happened in Helsinki with a summit/meeting, whatever it was that he had with Putin. And we're going to go over some of the fallout from that week that continued on all the way into the weekend. So stick with me and I'm going to get all this to you. Like I said, it's extremely crazy. So this Monday kicked off with Donald Trump going to Helsinki, Finland to meet Vladimir Putin. Now, a little bit of backstory. If you've just been asleep for the past 2 years, there's a very weird connection with Donald Trump and Russia, and Vladimir Putin has a lot of people saying, is there some way that Russia possibly has something on Donald Trump? Well, this Monday, that seemed to become a little bit clearer. He had a 2-hour meeting first with the Russian president, and there was no one else in the room except for the interpreters, which aren't supposed to divulge any information from the meetings. Then they came out, and Donald Trump probably put on the most disgraceful performance that a U.S. president has ever had on foreign soil. He basically sided with Vladimir Putin in multiple occasions, basically saying that even though when it came to election interference in the 2016 elections, his intelligence agencies have told them that they're very sure that it was Russia, that Vladimir Putin told him he didn't do it, and he doesn't see any reason why it would be. Now, that sentence would come up again later on in the week, but we'll get to that. Also in that meeting, Putin basically came out and said, yes, that he did want Donald Trump to win the presidency because he felt like it would make better relations for the United States and Russia. Overall, it was a horrible rebuke of what Donald Trump did, starting from before he even had the summit, due to a tweet like this, and also going into the evening when Fox News, as well as everyone else in the media, basically rebuked him for what he did in Helsinki. Here's a couple of those clips.
Rough homecoming for the president, returning to harsh criticism from Republicans and Democrats alike for failing to stand firm behind the U.S. intelligence community's assessment on Russian interference. Harsh words coming not only from members of his own party, but also the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
The president's comments made us look as a nation more like a pushover.
Russia was involved in many ways in meddling in the United States, and anybody that suggests that it didn't happen isn't looking at the facts.
And over in the House, a similar reaction. Speaker Ryan addressing not only the president siding with Putin over the probe intelligence, but also equating U.S. behavior to that of an aggressive Putin, issuing this statement saying the president must appreciate that Russia is not our ally. There is no moral equivalence between the United States and Russia, which remains hostile to our most basic values and ideals.
I think he made a mistake yesterday.
But it seems like Donald Trump, of all people, should have been able to split this baby, and that you can point out that our intelligence agencies have come to this conclusion, and it's not just Bob Mueller. In fact, that Bob Mueller indictment reads a lot like the report that came out of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence.
So, like I said, pretty disastrous by all means. And later on in the week, there were some things that happened, and we'll get to those next. So, by the time Donald Trump got back, there are protests outside the White House. Those have been going on for a week straight now. And White House went on cleanup duty to try to fix whatever it was Donald Trump messed up in Helsinki, which was basically kicking his intelligence agencies to the curb and siding with the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin. The White House came out and said that Donald Trump basically misspoke. Instead of saying he didn't see any reason why it would be Russia, he actually meant to say he didn't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Here's Donald Trump for you.
It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't, or why it wouldn't be Russia. So, sort of a double negative. So you can put that in, and I think that probably clarifies things pretty good by itself.
So, mind you, that doesn't make any sense. I would advise you all to actually go watch the press conference, because the rest of the press conference was basically Donald Trump capitulating to Putin, actually even suggesting that Mueller's investigators can go talk to these Russians that they just indicted last Friday, only if Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation, the GRU, could actually question former ambassadors and other congressmen. Now, mind you, the congressmen that he was wanting to question were very influential in passing the Magnitsky Act, which puts economic sanctions on Russia, as well as restricts some of the oligarchs and everything that run the high-powered corporate positions in Russia from moving about the United States or any other Western countries. Basically, guys, what I want you to think about is this. If our president, who can't seem to differentiate collusion and Russian interference in the elections, sides with Russia on foreign soil about what our intelligence agencies have found, why does he do that? And then after all of these walkbacks that we had in the media this week, basically saying, oh, that's not what he meant to say, there were actually a lot of great things that came from the meeting. Here's the problem. The things that came from the meeting aren't coming from the United States. They're actually coming from Russia. Russia has said that Donald Trump and Putin agreed to a couple of things while they were there, talking about nuclear proliferation, as well as going into other areas which include reducing economic sanctions on Russia. Now, when it comes to the Mueller investigation, one of the things that were so essentially damning about the findings of some of the stuff that we know from Mueller's investigation and why he's investigating is that Donald Trump and his campaign were possibly talking to Russian intelligence officials pre-election about getting sanctions reduced on Russia. That would be a big thing. This is literally trillions of dollars of financial income that Russia can't obtain because of these sanctions. And just this week, after this meeting, the United States Treasury is now saying that they're considering reducing sanctions on RUSL, which is an aluminum conglomerate that Russia runs. Now, the guy who used to run RUSL is a guy named Oleg Deripaska. Now, if you're not into the whole Donald Trump Russia thing, just know if you did a quick Google search on his name, he would come up multiple times as having connections with some of Donald Trump's campaign people and quite a few U.S. congressmen. Now, lastly, I wanted to get into something else crazy that kind of connected the conservative wing of our politics to Russia, and I'll get into that here in a second. Now, on Monday, while Donald Trump was basically bowing and scraping to Russia, right before he got back, we got some information from the Department of Justice that there was an arrest of a Russian spy who was pushing gun rights for Russia here in America. Now, there isn't a right to bear arms in Russia, and more than likely with Vladimir Putin at the helm, there never will be. But those people have been coming to Russia, from Russia to the United States to essentially ingratiate themselves with the NRA and conservative politics and people that had pull in conservative arenas. Now, this came shortly after Donald Trump was back on the plane. Apparently Sunday, the FBI served an arrest warrant on a woman named Maria Butina, who's 29 years old. Now, the affidavit and the indictment that came after were pretty interesting because they essentially said that she was working as an agent of the Russian Federation in order to push pro-Russia policies here in conservative politics, I would advise everyone, please go read this indictment. If you haven't seen Red Sparrow, watch that movie and then read what happened as far as this indictment goes. She was basically a person that used sex to get to higher places in conservative politics and be able to have close and private meetings with some of these people. Now, the only people that were named in this indictment were her, but there were other people that were unnamed, like her boyfriend, who was from what media has looked at, was a person in conservative circles who had connections to people, including John Bolton, who is our current national security advisor, which has actually done a video for Maria Butina and her pro-gun Russian gun rights project. I don't know what to tell you guys. The only thing that I see as of right now is that there is a massive search by our federal government to root out anything that Russia has been doing for the last 5 to 6 years. And from this indictment, it seems that she came here around in 2013. And since then, she's gotten to the National Prayer Breakfast twice, which is a big conservative Christian thing that they do every year. And she's also gotten into a lifetime membership with the NRA, as well as she was at Donald Trump's inauguration, along with a bunch of other Russians. So for whatever Mueller puts out later on, there's a lot of things happening right now. And if you look at any conservative media, they're going to try to spin it as the left is freaking out about Donald Trump's connections to Russia. This is not a left or right thing. There's a Republican congressman, former CIA official, who put an op-ed out in the Washington Post. He says that he's never seen Russia manipulate a person as much as they have our American president. So that's the question. Can we trust our president? Is he really working in the best interest for us? Or, as we know, that Vladimir Putin will be coming back here sometime in the fall to Washington, D.C.? Is it just something that Donald Trump has a weird affinity for Putin? Does Putin have something over him? We don't know any of these things. We do know they tried to change the narrative. On Friday, we got a story about Michael Cohen. Possibly he did actually have secret recordings of a tape where Donald Trump was talking about payment to Karen McDougal, which is one of the women that apparently he paid off before the election. And that was a big story that played in the media. But it was released by Donald Trump's team to seem like possibly to change the story. Maybe too much Russia. How do we know? Thank you guys for tuning in this week. I appreciate it. I would advise you all to actually try to look up some of these indictments that came out from Mueller's office, the one about Maria Butina and the NRA, and just go read for yourself and see how much information that they're actually providing. You know, this whole narrative about, you know, the FBI and the government, Donald Trump's own government that he runs, is out to get him, just doesn't seem to shake out when you actually go read these pieces of factual information that the FBI and DOJ has put in front of judges in order to get arrests and warrants and search and seizures and things of that nature. So if you want to ask me anything, just make sure you can find me all over social media. You can hit me up on Instagram. You can hit me up on Twitter. Like and subscribe, please, down at the bottom. Leave me a comment. Let me know what might be on your mind as we inch closer to our elections. And that'll be one of the things I want to get into a little bit next week. Thank you all for watching NOBULL.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now.